here's a horrible thing, but I think you're going to jive with this. When I meet a woman, I just assume she either has or has had an eating disorder, period. Why? Why is that such a safe assumption? You won't be 100% correct, but man, you're going to be right a lot of the time.
Yeah. That breaks my heart. And you're probably right. God, so many things. But I will tell you that the big ones that I see, one is that, it's the societal, we're trying to look a certain way. And so we've been taught to look out that our external, how we look externally is how we get love. It's how we get validation, because that's the society that we're living in. And
will you let me push back on that slightly?
Yeah, please.
And I'm very open, but I would say you're raging against biology, not society.
Tell me more.
So when I think about this, and this isn't a free pass to just be, however we end up being as a society, that's fine because it's born of biology. But I think that when you understand what prompts it, which is nature has reached inside my brain and said, you're going to find these things attractive because they're signs of fertility. Now, of course, there's a societal layer. So when I was young, the thing that was en vogue was like super skinny, but still large breasts, right? And now it's big butts or like the rage and women that are slightly thicker. But that hasn't changed as far as I can tell, in my very non-scientific, but I would say still accurate assumption that just being a female who is competing for the attention of men and to compete against women who are often their harshest critics with their body. Again, the thing that you're actually raging against is a societal layer that is born of an evolutionary drive to find the most fertile and probably high status women, or women that confer the most status to you because they are considered the most beautiful. And so when people attack a very worth attacking notion at the level of society, they run into problems because really you have to address that you're getting this biological impulse. And at the risk of going too far afield, but I think this is really fascinating. They did a study where they looked at what age group do people find attractive based on their own age. And for women, there's a 4-year span that is glued to their own age. So 2 years older than them, 2 years younger than them is their sweet spot of what they find attractive in men. Men, it's a 22-year-old female, no matter how old they are. So they could be 14, they find a 22-year-old attractive. They could be 85 and they find a 22-year-old attractive. And it was one of those that it is brutal. And as somebody who's married to a woman that's only aging in one direction, it's like I fully empathize with her deeply. But at the same time, it was laugh out loud funny to me that that's what nature has done. And it's just ridiculous.
So I have so many things I want to say on that. So the first thing is, okay, that would make sense because our attraction is all built around reproducing.
Yep.
So there is that. And that would make sense that an older man would find a 22-year-old more attractive because it's a fertility thing.
Yep.
Totally makes sense. But when you're looking at what makes a woman, what the woman that's the most fertile is actually her hip to waist ratio.
Which is the only thing that runs across culture, across time.
Yeah.
Is hip to waist,
right?
Hip to waist ratio.
So I want to throw one other weird thing in here that I think isn't discussed enough, and it keeps showing up in a lot of conversations, which is we're also attracted to each other through smell.
Yes.
And there's a very interesting study that shows when women go on birth control and they meet their spouse, it was done in heterosexual relationships, that they have a different smell profile that they're attracted to if they're on the pill. 10 years into the marriage, they try to get pregnant, they get off the pill, all of a sudden the attraction is different. And so I went down a rabbit hole looking at that, and I was like, what is the attraction? What is the smell you gravitate towards? And it's for women, it is the one that is going to support her immune system the most. Because once she's actually pregnant, she's got foreign DNA in her from her husband's sperm. Crazy. So when we look, right? So when we look and we tie this all together, I think it's just like the nutrition and fasting conversation. we have directed what we think makes somebody attractive, what makes somebody healthy, what diet we need to be on. There's so much going on under the scenes of what attracts you to somebody else, what makes you, feel vibrant as a woman. And when I hear that the 20 and 30-year-olds have all these eating disorders, I just want to say, like, okay, everything you've been taught about attraction is wrong. And we've got to start to unwind that so we can come back into these natural patterns that we are using subconsciously.
It's interesting. So I've never heard the pill thing tied to scent before.
Yeah.
I've heard the studies about, okay, ladies, here are 12 t-shirts laid out before you.
Mm-hmm.
Smell them and just rank order them.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do that, they rank order them in the ones that they find the scent the most appealing is the person with the most genetic variation. So to your point about it would give you, it would certainly give your child the most advantage in terms of a far more robust immune system, and then down to the ones that they find the scent least appealing. So if you slip, I can't remember if they actually did this or if this was just somebody's hypothesis, but that you would expect that if one of their siblings were put into that mix, they don't know, they're just smelling the shirt, that they would actually rank them the lowest. If I remember right, that was part of the study.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that part of the study. That's
it would have to be true, right?
Yeah.
For that is the hypothesis or that is the prediction that hypothesis makes. Like that if this is about genetic variability, then the people that would be most like you, your siblings, you would find the least appealing, which is very interesting. But going back to this idea of food addiction. So women are struggling with it, 20s and 30s, maybe the worst, which is already fascinating. But how do you begin to help them break this?
Yeah. So this is such a great question. The first is we've got to get them looking at something like a continuous glucose monitor.
So just get away from calories.
Get away from calories.
We still want them to feel in control? Is that the idea?
Yes, it's a control issue. So I've proven this over and over again with people with severe food addictions and eating disorders. Is I always say, give me 2 weeks. You can count your calories if you want, if that helps you feel in control. I want you to not look at your scale if they can. Sometimes they have to anyways. But I want your focus for the next 2 weeks to be on what foods are doing to your glucose. And the name of the game is less spikes. So you just don't want to see those spikes going up and down. So when you get your chart on your meter, you don't want them going up and down 6-8 times a day. You want them going up and down maybe twice a day. And when
how tight do you try to control that range?
Well, so then you want to see it go down. Like I don't like it to go above like 120. I'd like to see it hover around that. And then I'd like to see it come down within a half an hour pretty quickly.
Do you think about daily averages?
Yeah, daily average, like I'd like to see it 95, 100.
Okay.
Would be really good.
Interesting. So that feels high to me. Are you being overly generous? Because you know what people's limitations are?
Yeah, I'm being overly sensible.
Okay.
Because
overly sensible. Wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, like what I've learned in like teaching the world about glucose and fasting is that if I say like the 70 to 90 is a perfect range. But if I take a woman who's food addicted, has 8 glucose spikes that go up to 120, throughout the course of her day, and I say you got to get it to an average of 75, it's too far of a leap. And we often don't need motivation to start to eat different. We need momentum. And so when we come over here and we say your gold standard is, 1.5 ketones and your gold standard is 75, an average of 75 glucose every day, it's the single mom who's working 2 jobs that's just trying to make it. And if that's her goal, it's not it's not easy for her to follow. Right. And she's just going to stay in her.
She's going to feel like I can't win.
Yeah.
This is all lost.
And the story I always tell is during the pandemic, I had a high school principal in South Carolina reach out to me. And she said, she followed me on YouTube and she said, I'm very concerned because we're going back to school and my teachers are freaking out about their immune system. Will you come give a talk to them or like a Zoom talk? So I did. And I talked all about like fancy ways to eat and supplements and how you can improve your immune system, many of the things we're talking about right now. And at the end of the conversation, I asked if anybody had a question. This very brave man raises his hand and he said, "You know, I hear what you're saying, but if I'm at a grocery store and I'm looking at a nut butter that has the right oils compared to the inflammatory ones, that's $8 difference. And I don't
Mm.
have, that's $8 I don't have." And then another woman raised her hand and said, "I get up at 4:30. I'm at school at 5. I work till 5. I come home, have to take care of my kids. The easiest place for me to go is through the McDonald's drive-through.
Mm.
I don't know how I can do all these things you're saying." And it hit me in that moment that I had done them a disservice by tricking out much of a conversation like we're having now. Because if it gets confusing, if food gets confusing, if health gets confusing, we get blocked and we just fall back into our old patterns.
Mm.
With glucose, yes, 70 to 90, somewhere in that average would be amazing. But if your average is 120 and you get down to 110, you are moving in the right direction, and that is awesome. So I want to make health approachable for everybody, not just the people who can afford it or the people who can understand it. How do we do this so that everybody can win? Okay, check this out. I have a free fasting guide for you all. It's free, and it's going to teach you all the basics of fasting. It's going to teach you how to kill hunger when you fast, which is really cool, and it's going to show you how to break your fast, among many other things. All you got to do is click on this link right here and enjoy.
I'm going to make one sort of last ditch effort on the people that are struggling. They're buying the wrong nut butters, et cetera, et cetera. So at Christmas, I do everything wrong. And I love it. It's a 2-week period where I take a vacation from all of my rules and regulations. So I live my life by a very strict set of rules that I will credit most of my success with my willingness to write down what those things should be and then to actually live by them. But at Christmas, I go completely off the rails. There is literally nothing that is off limits for me. If I want to eat ice cream every day, I will eat ice cream every day. I don't drink alcohol, but like if I wanted to, and not as a hard and fast, but very rare because I don't like the way that I feel the next day. Not hangover because I don't push it that hard, but like it just makes my stomach feel gross. I don't know how to explain it, but even if I wanted to have alcohol, for sure, go for it, no problem. So really, really, I'm off the rails at Christmas. But what I have found is that by intermittent fasting, that I can still keep my average glucose. This is eating ice cream. This is eating cookies, breads, whatever I want. I can keep my average glucose in the 75 to 85 range as an average, but I'm going to spike up to like 150, 155. I don't like the way I feel north of 170. So I won't do that even at Christmas. I just don't like the way it feels. I'm going to do some exercise, which is something we haven't talked about yet, which is you want to manage your glucose levels, eat whatever you want, and then do air squats. Like you don't have to go to a gym.
Yeah, it's really
literally
good.
you're there, you're talking to your kid, they're walking you through homework, whatever. And I get the psychological energy, but if you just did 150 air squats, you will be startled at how much that starts pushing your glucose down.
Yeah.
I still to this day, I've done it so many times. I know it works.
Yeah.
But I'm still shocked that with a continuous glucose monitor over a 30 to 60 minute period, you can watch your glucose just going down, 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 down. Because you're doing some minor air squats. Okay, if you do enough of them, they can be pretty tiring. But just doing air squats, you can drive your glucose down. So between intermittent fasting and over Christmas, I'm not crazy. I'm not doing my like 18, 19 hours, but I'm going to do 15, 16. By doing that and air squats, I do a little more than that, but like that sort of general direction, I can keep it 85. And this is not anything fancy. This is the cheapest food you can imagine. So I'm eating all the things I grew up with. And people that don't know my story, I did not grow up with money. So I grew up on, rice-a-roni, and we didn't eat Hamburger Helper because that was the expensive stuff. That's how I grew up. Okay.
Wow.
I'm talking boiled hot dogs on the cheapest white bread that you can imagine. Not Wonder Bread. We did not splurge on Wonder Bread. Okay. So I'm going back to all those like comfort foods from when I was a kid. And with that simple protocol of intermittent fasting and a little bit of big muscle group exercises, I'm able to maintain for the entire 2 weeks an average of below 85.
Yes. And I think that's the goal. if we can, because again, what you just said will work for people regardless of their socioeconomic resources. So I love that. And you were insulin sensitive going into the
Okay,
holiday.
that's fair.
So
Very fair.
you're not talking about if somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh my God, I cannot move the needle on weight loss and I have an extra 50 to 100 pounds to lose. And they do what you just said. They're not going to get an average of 75.
Man, that's so well said.
So,
No, keep
and
going. This is
yeah,
interesting.
and so I'll give you a really cool example I had last year. I had a man who was over 300 pounds come to me and ask for my help.
I love this story.
And he basically said, I asked him, what's your biggest hurdle? Why can't you? He's like, I've tried every diet. I said, what's your biggest hurdle? He's like, I am just food addicted. And I'm like, okay. So in my head, I'm like, if I get him to change his foods, and he was drinking 12 sodas a day.
Oh my God.
That was the obvious thing for me to take out.
The amount of sugar.
The amount of sugar. I had so much to say on that. But he told me he was food addicted. So I didn't want to just be another person that came in and said, you need to get off your soda. So I said, just eat whatever you're eating. And can you start to move your breakfast back an hour? And your first month, the only goal, I don't even want you to touch your food. The only goal is I want to see if you can eat all of that food in about a 10-hour, 11-hour eating window. So I need you fasting 13 to 15 hours. And so he did. First month, that's the only advice I gave him. We talked a month later. He had lost 13 pounds in the first month. See, he was still drinking 12 sodas a day. So then I said, okay, second month, I was like, could you just drink your soda outside the house? So, like if you want to have it at work, great. But at home, don't eat it. And he said, well, can I drink Crystal Light? And in my head, I'm thinking, no, you can't drink Crystal Light. But I was like, go for it. Just because I was like, I don't know what it'll do to his glucose. So he just drank, he did his soda outside his house. And second month, lost another 10 pounds. Now he's fasting about 15 hours. Third month, we added in protein. I still didn't take much away. And I got his eating window down to about an 8-hour consistent eating window. And I had him increase protein because when you increase protein, you increase muscle. When you increase muscle, you increase more insulin receptor sites. So third month, he lost another 10 pounds. This went on for, we've been working now, it's been about 6 to 7 months. He's down 100 pounds.
Wow. And
his food preferences have changed. Because back to the theory that when you start to intermittent fast, you change your microbiome. And when your microbiome is what's often controlling your taste buds. So when you were saying, well, oh my God, I hate nuts. And I interpret that as, well, you and I have different microbiomes.
It's not that I hate nuts, it's that I think of them as falling into the evil category.
Oh, okay.
I love it. If you tell me that I can eat nuts, I'm gonna eat the most nuts. I love them. But that is really fascinating. I hope people don't blow past that because I would not have believed you until I did it and realized, whoa, the things I actually crave they really are different now.
Yeah.
And so going back to this idea of the difficulty that you have diminishes tremendously the longer you stay consistent with this. Your microbiome is changing. You become metabolically flexible, so you can burn sugar or burn fat. Yep. Your microbiome whatever you eat a lot of, your microbiome will scream for more.
That's right.
And so if you're eating bok choy and eggs, like I eat a lot of, then your microbiome screams for bok choy and eggs.
That's right.
And so my microbiome isn't screaming for cookies, cakes, candy, pie, because I just don't eat it.
Right. That's right. But what do you do with the food addicted person? That is dopamine for them. That is joy. And so
that's one of the most brutal things about a long fast.
Is the lack of
there's
dopamine.
no dopamine.
Yeah.
You suddenly realize, oh, I eat food like a drug. Like even my normal food, my eggs and bok choy give me a dopamine response.
That's right. Actually, you going to make your eggs and bok choy gives you the dopamine.
For sure.
So
I'm getting dopamine right now thinking about going for my eggs and bok choy. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but this is why fasting is so pivotal for that food addiction piece, is because now what we can do is we can get you some ketones so that we can calm the hunger down a little bit. and we can change your microbiome so we change your taste buds.
Mm.
And it's not going to happen overnight, but what we've seen is that over even a couple of weeks to a month, you will start to see the changes happen to people's food preferences. And this guy is a perfect example of it. By 5 months in, he told me he was completely off of soda. He was completely off
Wow.
Crystal Light. He wasn't eating his buffalo wings anymore. And I said to him, why? Like, what happened? And he goes, I don't know. I'm just not craving them.
So if you love this video, you're gonna wanna check out this video. Foods that I used to eat, 7 of them. I used to eat them all the time. Some of them are gonna shock you, and I don't eat them anymore. Now, let me tell you where you might find conventional fruit. So apples and bananas are kind of the biggies. Apple a day kept the doctor away. Not anymore.